We'll call the meeting to order, being 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosworth.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Lynn.
Present.
Commissioner Shimmons.
Here.
Commissioner Stefanski.
Here.
Commissioner Twardy.
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I would ask those with cell phones if you would please put them on vibrate or silence them. We'd appreciate it. Item number 1, public comment on scheduled agenda items. Any person may reserve time to speak on an agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience like to speak on an agenda item? Yes, sir. If we could have your name? Don. And what item is that? Oh. Item 5F. 5F, down. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 2 is the consent agenda. City Clerk, please.
Under the consent agenda is a minute approval. 1, approval of the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of July 7th, 2014, and special City Commission meeting of July 16th, 2014. Recommended action, approve the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of July 7th and the special City Commission meeting of July 16th. Item 2, acceptance of the minutes of the following boards and commissions. A, Airport Advisory Board, June 11th. B, Economic Development Corporation, May 13th. C, Planning Commission of June 26th. And D, Tree Commission of June 17th. Recommended action, accept the minutes of the various boards and commissions. Item B, appointments and resignations. 1, reappointment to the Economic Development Corporation. Recommended action, confirm the mayor's reappointment of Bob Mattson to the Economic Development Corporation for a term to expire June 1, 2020.
Okay, thank you. Is there any commissioner that would like something further explained on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. Commissioner Twardy.
So move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosworth.
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Gary.
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn.
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons.
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski.
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 3, special orders of business. A, second reading of an ordinance to rezone 510 East Spruce Street from residential multifamily RM-2 to local business B1. A is public comments and B is action on the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As commissioners are aware, this request was brought in front of the commission at its July 7th regular meeting. A first reading was approved, and this provides for the rezoning of the former Garfield Elementary School at 510 East Spruce from RM2 multifamily residential to B1 local business. This approval by the City Commission at its July 7th meeting followed a unanimous recommendation issued by the Planning Commission at its June 26th, the regular meeting, that the Commission approve this rezoning. Just as a brief outline for information already covered, this rezoning would be consistent with the master plan in that the master plan calls for the adaptive reuse of historic structures, and is also consistent with best zoning practices because it would not be inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Accordingly, I am recommending to the Commission that second reading be held of this rezoning request and that it be approved.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, we'll hold the public comment on the reading of the ordinance to rezone 510 East Spruce Street from residential multifamily RM-2 to local business B1. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment. City Commission, Commissioner Stefanski.
I just wanted to comment, I'm excited to see this building get redeveloped. It's a really spectacular building, and I'm really happy that someone's putting the investment into it. So move that the city commission approve the second reading of this ordinance request.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions or comments? Additional comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosfus?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
Item 4, Communications A from the Downtown Development Authority, request for a public hearing to amend the Downtown Development Area 2 Plan.
Okay, thank you very much. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've requested that DDA Director Justin Knepper make a presentation on this, given its impact and importance.
Evening, Justin.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Justin Knepper, Downtown Manager for Sault Ste. Marie. And I wanted to talk a little bit, oops, I won't touch that, I think it's in the right spot, about our tax increment finance plan number 2. Over the past year, the Downtown Development Authority has gone through a process of expansion. Last October, I believe, the City Commission voted to approve the expansion of the Downtown Development Authority boundaries, and that overlaps, that allows us to collect funding from 2 different sources. One is the Principal Shopping District 2 mil special assessment, which the Commission also approved this early spring. And then the final portion is our Downtown Development Area 2 plan. Many
Justin?
folks refer to it.
Excuse me, is there a way to turn that so that it, I'm reading the stuff going out the left side, does that matter?
It's that shows a little bit of the boundary, and I'll give you a
Okay.
quick example to start with. But the Downtown Development Area 2 plan is mostly known to folks here as TIF 2. This shows the current DDA district. If you can see, I don't know if hopefully I'm close enough.
that's
This is the outline here of the entire DDA. The red area is Downtown Development Area 1, or TIF 1, and the blue area is Downtown Development Area 2, or known as TIF 2. It used to end, and it currently still does in terms of the TIF, right here at Osborne. So we are currently working on expanding the Downtown Development Area 2 plan to include all the way to Magazine Street. You can see the green shaded areas are the tax-paying properties that pay into the Principal Shopping District, and they also would be impacted by the Downtown Development Area plan. One thing to keep in mind, that the DDA is funded by a majority from the Downtown Development Area plans, and the only way that we can collect tax increment financing is by following our master plan, which is a 60-page document I have here, which is available on our website, and that's what we're going to be holding a public hearing on, is amending the steps and the plans that would be carried out with this funding going through to 2026 when the plan expires. The way it works, again, is tax increment financing is not a new tax. It is the shifting or the redesignation of future tax growth from the taxing entities to the DDA on these specific properties. So in other words, if a property on Portage Street in the tourist district grows by, let's say, a few percent in terms of its assessed value by 2017, the DDA would capture that growth. So there's no new tax and there's no losses in revenue to the city or to any other taxing entity, but it allows the city to more directly focus the future tax growth to the downtown development district, and again, specifically on these properties. So this boundary, unless there's any questions, it goes, the blue area covers City Hall here is the farthest point, and then swings down into the Sulax Park a little bit, Brady Park, and then goes all the way across. Currently the DDA boundary is this boundary, but the TIF is just not overlaid, or the development area is just not overlaid to that boundary yet. To give you a few examples of what the plan is there a way to-
Keep going.
I figured 2 people.
Okay. Just to quickly run through some of the objectives that the Downtown Development Area 2 plan has to accomplish. You can see I have them labeled by year. So the original plan in 1986, we are still working on our side streetscapes. So Portage from Ashman to Brady, running along the farmers market in front of Napa and here to City Hall is on our list of areas to streetscape. Ashman Street from Portage to Water down the hill. That got some new paving, but we still don't have street lights and some of the other things we'd like to have there. Osborne Street from Ridge to Portage, and then Ridge and Maple from Osborne to Bingham, there in front of the county courthouse and some of the other areas. And then Bingham, just here in front of the Magic Mirror, and Border Patrol is also on the target list, and those streets have been on our objective list since the inception of the TIF2 plan, or the Downtown Development Plan. Another one is building improvement incentives. That's something that we're still working on, and the City Commission, the DDA, about 2 years ago enacted a local grant program that the DDA is funding with TIF2 funds. We have about $7,000 set aside to help local properties when they're doing some upgrades, fresh coats of paint, things like that. That was an objective going back to the 1980s as well. A band shell has been on the list for the last 30 plus years. We made a little bit of progress with the Sulaks Park. Allowed us to, well actually the Sulaks Park and the Army Corps installed a kind of a stone platform in the Sulaks Park last year that was about all the National Park Service would allow in the Sulaks Park. So it's currently doing well, and hopefully in the future we're still looking at a band shell as something down the road. Commercial incubator development has been on the list as well for a number of years. It's something that hasn't quite been able to take off, but it's still, I think, something that the DDA board would love to see. That's where we would have a, in larger cities especially, they have an area kind of like the manufacturing incubator on Easter Day for the EDC. It would be something more focused on retail and services in Sault Ste. Marie. And then in 2006, 2 other areas were added to the Downtown Development Area 2 plan. In 2006, the parking garage had just been constructed, and the plan was amended to draw a line to allow the Downtown Development Area 2 to help fund and help support the parking structure. So that's currently one of the areas that the TIF2 plan is funding. And then City Hall, when City Hall was built here in the old Federal Building, that was something that was on the DDA plan for years, was to see the old Federal Building be reused. And currently the Downtown Development Area 2 plan is financially supporting a portion of the City Hall debt. And so these are some of the objectives in 2014 that the DDA is looking to add. Since we're amending the physical area, we're also looking at ways to also amend and add to some of the objectives that the plan allows us to spend the money on. So one of the big things that happened in 2012 and 2013 was the Maloney Alley Visioning Plan. That was not in the Development Area 2 plan. We had some wording dating back to the 80s about improving the alley itself, and so this really hones in the plan on making sure the vision takes place. Another is the old Mariner Motel property that was mentioned very vaguely in the original plans, and now that that's a vacant lot, the DDA has that targeted as a lot that would be prime for redevelopment there between the Palace and the soon-to-be winery. Another one is historic building and signage preservation along Portage Street. One of the, going back to the building improvement incentives, we're again honing that in, especially looking at some of our old neon signs. You know, the Gates' Lockview restaurant, the motel there, Longships, a lot of those signs have a lot of history and a lot of value, cultural value, and many of them are beginning to be in a state of disrepair, and so we're talking to property owners. That's one example of where we'd like to go in terms of really encouraging Portage Street to focus on historic preservation and building restoration. Another one, and this is really where the whole conversation got started when we started to look at amending this area, was increasing our maintenance services. So the DDA had been doing maintenance 5 days a week, and a few years ago even the mayor was out helping pick up trash, I believe, on West Portage Avenue on weekends, because the tourists are down there 7 days a week, and we didn't have the funds or the staffing to really handle that. So the DDA, by expanding this area, is able to start covering a lot of the weekend maintenance required on West Portage Avenue to keep up with the tourist season. And then just a few others. We're looking at improving the Portage and Magazine intersection there before you get to the mini golf course, the Clover End Electric area, kind of one of the visual points when tourists pull in off of West Portage. We'd like to see that visually improved. And then farmers market and improvements are still on the list where we built it. That was one of the big objectives that the DDA had in the past with the TIF2 plan. And now we have the big awning that's starting to get raggedy, and we have to look at replacing that someday down the road, as well as the alley behind running from the market to Maple Street is one of the things that's on the list for hopefully paving at some point, kind of running behind Harmony Health Foods and some other places. So those are some of the objectives. And that's where, if the Development Area 2 plan is put in place, the primary funding from the DDA is technically, by state law, supposed to be only focused on these plans. This is probably the most important sheet to look at. This shows the potential impact. If you can zoom in on that. The potential financial impact, we have to show projections for if tax values increase, or if assessed values increase, how that would impact the different taxing entities. So this shows just the properties in the expanded area are valued at total assessed value in 2015 of 1.9 million, and that the DDA would not start capturing any growth. This is based on a 1.5% assessed value growth. It's pretty conservative. So if the assessed value of these properties rose by 1.5% each year over the next 10 years till 2026, the DDA would capture a total of about $926 the first year, $1,885, $2,000, $3,000, and it ends in 2026 with about a $12,000 capture in that whole area. So it's very financially limited in terms of, $12,000 in the last year, a total of about $76,000. But what it does is really, it's a matter of equity. It allows those property owners to participate in the DDA and receive some of the services. So it breaks down in terms of the county would be impacted by about $19,000 over the course of until 2026. The city would be impacted by about $56,000, and the library by $1,200. And that is based on if the tax value actually increased. And one other way to look at it is that the DDA is, to a certain extent, rewarded for the work that we do to really continue the development of downtown, and it allows us to capture, if we're working the way we're supposed to be working and increasing property values, those funds would be directed towards the DDA. Every 20 years the plans expire, so in 2026 the city would have the opportunity to review, the city commission have the opportunity to review the plans and decide if we've accomplished those goals. So that's where we're at in terms of the next steps. There will be, based on the City Commission action tonight, a public hearing that would allow the public to have input on the plan and on the proposed amendments to the plan. That's scheduled, or the proposal is to be scheduled in August for that meeting. And then the second thing we have to do is hold meetings with the county as well as the library. The DDA would have to do that because they do have an opt-out option for this expanded area. So they have to also, their boards have to understand that these plans are worth the investment too. So if there's any questions?
Commissioner Bauer has a question, I think.
Actually, it wasn't a question. It was just a statement when Justin's done. I've already been through the meetings, so.
Yep, okay. I think that's all I have on my end.
Anyone else have a question of Justin? Thank you. Commissioner Bauer.
Yeah, what I'd like to say is that I hope that the commission views this as a natural progression, which it is. It's also very necessary because those businesses that are in this area deserve the services that the DDA can provide. They need those services, and the only way to provide them, of course, is to add them to the district. And anyone who is for or against this will have the opportunity to say so, hopefully, in 4 weeks from now. So I move that the City Commission hold a public hearing regarding the proposed amendments to the tax increment financing and development plan for Downtown Development Area 2 during our August 18th, 2014 regular meeting, and approve the distribution of notices for the proposed amendment of this plan as required under state law.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Any questions?
I'm not used to getting that.
Yeah, it was almost,
Well done.
unanimous. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Torty?
I still think I was loudest, but yes.
Mayor Boskus?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next item under communications is item B from the Economic Development Corporation, scheduling a public hearing for the August 4th, 2014 for the Garfield Commons request to establish a commercial rehabilitation tax exemption district for the property located at 510 East Spruce.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As commissioners are aware, the EDC and Kristen Klaus have been working with Ms. Corbiere, owner of 510 East Spruce, to establish a commercial rehabilitation district that would provide certain commercial tax abatement incentives for the redevelopment of that property. The scheduling of a public hearing for the August 4th regular meeting to consider the establishment of this district is technically the first step that's required in establishing the district. As detailed in the memorandum, after that public hearing is held on August 4th, the commission would then have the option of approving a resolution establishing the district, and then that resolution would be sent to the Chippewa County Board of Commissioners for potential action on it. And then if the commercial rehabilitation district is established and approved, after that point, Ms. Corbiere would be able to submit her application for an exemption. Then there'd be a public hearing held on that application, and it could be potentially approved after that. So this, as I mentioned before, is just the first step technically in the process. And I'm recommending that the commission establish a public hearing to be held during the August 4th, 2014 regular meeting to receive comments regarding the establishment of the commercial rehabilitation district.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stefanski.
So moved that the city commission approve the city manager's recommendation.
Support.
It's been moved, supporters. Are there any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Torty?
Yes.
Mayor Boskus?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next item is from the Tax Increment Finance Authority 3, which Airport, proposed budget amendment for fiscal year 2014-2015 TIFA 3 budget.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As commissioners are aware, during the fiscal year 2015 budget development process, the LDFA requested an appropriation of $40,000 from TIFA 3 based on then projected revenue shortfalls. However, since that time, projected revenue collections have increased, and the LDFA board has approved the return of that $40,000 appropriation to TIFA 3. And essentially, this recommendation deals with returning that to TIFA 3 and duly approving it in the budget.
Okay, that's good news.
That's great news.
And Commissioner Gary.
So moved that we approve the return of TIFA 3 funds in the amount of $40,000 back to the TIFA 3 as recommended by the LDFA board.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. We're having multiple people supporting. That's good because you're all paying attention.
I'm the only one that hasn't said
Yes.
support.
That's certainly okay. Are there any questions? Again, they're returning funds which we thought they might need to our LDFA, which is much like a TIFA, collecting, as we all know, the taxes, school taxes that are being replaced by the state of Michigan. So as this entity continues to grow, the smart zone will become even more of a strong entity. I understand it maybe would be a good idea sometime in the near future. Just I know they can't talk about particular items that they have on their board, drawing board type of thing because of the confidentiality and the patent possibilities and that kind of thing. But maybe have the director, Eric Bex, before us in a commission meeting initially before we start, just give a summary of how the LDFA and the Smart Zone are doing.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to arrange for that kind of presentation.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Torty?
Yes.
Mayor Boskus?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
The next item under communications is item D, from the Community Action Human Resource Authority, approval of the Sault Ste. Marie Dial-A-Ride Program, CLM Community Action Title VI Plan.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As outlined in the memorandum, the Federal Transit Administration has updated the Title VI circular, essentially updating the Title VI plan that the city is required to adopt in support of the Dial-A-Ride program. This provides additional guidance to grantees as well as updated appendices, and it's my understanding that Mr. Ken Stott is in attendance tonight and would have the opportunity to address the commission if he so chooses, but notwithstanding that, I'm recommending that the City Commission approve the Title VI plan as presented.
Okay, thank you. I see Ken Stott here, the manager of the local Dial-A-Ride. Do you have any comments you'd like to make, or any questions of, never short of saying a few words? Come on up here, Ken.
Okay, a little bit of the,
Before you,
little bit of the history on some of this Title VI plan. Previously, MDOT we would do a plan, they would approve it and went on, and now as time goes on now, they want the city to approve it since the money runs through the city. And one of the biggest changes in the plan that I was looking at is and you might be familiar with it, is what they call the LEP plan, Limited English Proficiency. So that's one of the biggest real changes in there, except some, other verbiage. And that's, they just want you to approve this, and then I'll send it in to them.
any questions of Mr. Stott? Well, thank you very much for the update. Commissioner Lynn.
Your Honor, I so move the City Commission approve the Sioux Dial-A-Ride CLM and CLM Community Action Human Resources Authority Inc. Title VI Plan.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item number 5 is the city manager's report.
Under item A is award of bid for the commercial zero-turn mower for the airport. As detailed in the memorandum, the EDC and city, through its established bidding process, solicited bids for the purchase of a new commercial zero-turn mower. 3 bids were received. The apparent low bidder was Ginup Sales, and the budget appropriation for this is $14,000, and there are actually 2 separate recommendations. The first would be the award of the purchase for this mower to Ginup Sales of Allenton, Michigan, in the amount of $12,998. And the second would be the approval of transferring $13,000 from the Fund 24786-00101, which is TIFA 3 fund, to the Capital Equipment Airport 101-57977-729 fund, which is a general fund. And the reason for this this budget amendment is to ensure that this purchase is recorded as a city asset. So essentially what would happen is it would be charged to the general fund, and the TIFA 3 funds would be used for the purchase. That being said, I recommend that be awarded to Ginup Sales and that the budget amendment be approved.
Okay, thank you. There are 2 recommendations in discussion with the city attorney. That's 2 separate motions. Commissioner Stefanski.
So move that the City Commission award a bid for the commercial zero-turn mower for the airport to Ginup Sales of Lansing, Michigan, in the amount of $12,998.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner Stefanski.
So move that the City Commission approve the transfer of $13,000 from the Fund 247-86-00-010 to the Capital Equipment Airport 101-57977-729 for the purchase of the zero-turn mower for the airport.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Under item B, 2015 police utility vehicle, under the city manager's report, the city solicited sealed bids for the purchase of a 2015 four-wheel drive police utility vehicle. This vehicle would be used by shift supervisors for patrol duties, and 2 dealerships submitted a total of 3 bids. The apparent initial low bid was from Signature Ford in Owasso at the amount of $26,609, and the next lowest bid was Sioux Motors, which bid $26,800. The bid by Sioux Motors was within the 5% established by the purchasing policy for local preference. In fact, it was less than 3/4%, and after being presented with the opportunity to match Signature Ford's bid, Sioux Motors did exactly that, bringing its price down to $26,609 and including the necessary trailer towing package that was not included in their initial bid. And accordingly, I'm recommending that the City Commission act to award the purchase of this vehicle to Sioux Motors in the amount of $26,609 as adjusted by Sioux Motors to include the necessary towing equipment.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
Your Honor, I'd so move the purchase of the 2015 Ford Explorer Interceptor from Sioux Motors to include the necessary trailer towing package at no additional cost, the amount not to exceed $26,609.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, under item C of City Manager's Report, award of bid for the parking structure repairs project. The city, through its established purchasing policy, solicited sealed bids for repairs at the parking structure. These repairs would include approximately 20 square feet of concrete floor repairs, replacing T-to-T joint sealants on supported levels, expansion joint repairs, and the removal and replacing of debonded traffic topping. 3 companies submitted bids for this work, and Meridian Restoration, based in Alpena, Michigan, was the apparent low bidder, and they submitted a price of $90,247.50. During the evaluation of the bids, the city engineer, Basista, worked with Walker Parking Consultants to make sure that the company that would be awarded the work will have the capacity to do it correctly. This work is actually included in the 6-year capital improvement plan that was established by Walker Consultants for the consistent and responsible upkeep of the parking structure. And accordingly, I'm recommending that the City Commission award this work to Meridian Restoration in an amount not to exceed $90,247.50.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Simmons.
I move the city manager's recommendation.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions or comments? I see, I have just a comment, or maybe a question. Justin Nepper, who was in charge of our parking and certainly the parking structure. If you come up, I just have a couple of questions, I think. One being the crack sealant that we presently had that done how many years ago?
Well, from what I know, it was done probably a year or two before I came here, and I don't believe it was the entire parking garage. It was specific joints that were done, and a lot of it was, from what we can tell and from what Walker Parking Consultants can tell, was done incorrectly, and so we had a lot of the joint sealants give way, and so that's what's caused probably the most concern from people parking in the garage each day, especially during the winter and spring when we have a lot of water running. We've had almost every joint currently is kind of dripping water onto the vehicles. So it was unfortunate that I think that was probably 5 or 6 years ago when a few of those joints were done and they didn't quite last. So I think with Walker Parking's involvement and Linda Basista's involvement, we're going to have probably a pretty tightly sealed parking garage once this project is done.
I guess that was one of the biggest complaints that a number of us, I think, heard, that when people would park to go get their car or to go from their car, they were getting dripped on, and because of the amount of water in that, especially in the wintertime, if we're holding water on or snow on the roof, it was pretty hard to get to your car without getting a little bit wet.
Yes, absolutely.
And-
I actually was down at a conference in Detroit and was walking through a parking garage, and I was like, how is this such a spotlessly dry and clean parking garage after I spent so much time getting used to our kind of damp one? So I'm looking forward to having a dry garage again.
And clean.
And clean, absolutely. We have about, I think we're averaging about 250 cars a day parking in there currently, and certainly getting a lot of use, and we certainly hope to bring it up to par for what people are expecting out of that garage.
I guess the final question, is there a guarantee on that it will work for a certain amount of years?
I do believe, I don't know, Linda might have a better answer in terms of the information on the contractor bids, but I expect that would be the case.
But I would certainly hope so, because $90,000 is a big price tag.
Absolutely.
And we know it's expensive to maintain, and the more people that park in it and are happy parking in it, the more they'll use it, so, especially in the wintertime. Thank you. And that's the case? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosfus?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you.
Item D, under City Manager's Report, proposed ordinance authorizing CSO Phase C3 Project SRF and DWRF bonds. The Phase C3 of the CSO project is currently estimated in total to cost $13,810,000. This figure includes a potential contract award to Tobacco Construction in an amount just under $11 million. $191,650,000 in total administration and legal fees, $756,000 and $636 in total basic engineering fees, $141,000 in additional services, $786,000 in inspection services, $150,000 in miscellaneous fees such as construction compaction testing, and over $782,000 in contingency expenses. So given that the total anticipated cost of the project is $13,810,000, in order to finance this, the city would be issuing 3 bonds. The ordinance that's included in front of commissioners in this packet would provide for the issuance of 2 of these bonds. First, that would be the Sewer Revolving Fund bond in an amount of $7.145 million, and the issuance of a Drinking Water Revolving Fund bond in the amount of $4.38 million. The $2.285 million capital improvement bond that would further support this project would be potentially approved at a later time. Now, in regards to the financing of this DEQ required project, the city over the next 20 years will need to gradually increase its rates to fund this required project, and will also defray portions of the street improvements from special assessments. One note about the ordinance, it actually would provide for the issuance of up to $12.5 million. And as commissioners probably noted, the total bonds that are being recommended for issuance between the SRF and DWRF programs total $11.52 million. The higher amount was just to provide additional flexibility in case there is a change between now and the delivery date of September 17th for these bonds. The city is in no way required to accept the full $12.5 million. As a secondary issue, there is a budget amendment that would be required for this project. And as commissioners are aware, during the budget development process of the fiscal year 2015 budget, there was an appropriation in the amount of $12 million for this project. However, given that the total expense is projected to be $13.81 million, a budget amendment increasing that appropriation by $1.81 million is recommended. And just a note, the acting manager at the time and finance director and other staff did plan for a project of this size, and the rates were established on a project that would cost $14 million. So appropriate financial planning was undertaken during the process. All that being said, my recommendation is to 1, approve the adoption and publication of the included ordinance providing for the issuance of bonds that will finance the CSO Phase C3 project, and number 2, approve a budget amendment increasing the $12 million budget appropriation for the CSO Phase C3 project under the line item 419-57577-801 to $13.81 million.
Okay, thank you. There are two recommendations, and the city attorney recommends those are, or states those are two separate motions. Commissioner Tuarty.
I approve that, or I move that the city commission, how would I read that? Adopt and publicate the included ordinance providing for the issuance of
Yep.
bonds that will finance the CSO Phase C3 project.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Commissioner Tuarty. Oh,
Yeah.
Commissioner, sorry. Commissioner Bauer has a
By the
question.
way, the verb is publish.
Publish.
Oh, okay. Adopt and publish.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was like adopt and publicate. Okay.
I don't think publicate is a word.
Oh, I'm sure I could find it. All right, I so move that City Commission approve a budget amendment increasing the $12 million budget appropriation for the CSO Phase C3 under the General Ledger line item 419-57577-801 to $13,810,000.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Commissioner Lynn.
This is our last CSO project, is that correct?
Commissioner, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I do believe that there will be some, after this phase is completed, some potential additional follow-up work. However, if it's your pleasure, I'll defer to our city engineer, who has a very strong working knowledge of this, or Mr. Randy
Oh,
Scott.
And we
C2AE.
are sort of christened tonight by the attendance of Randy Scott from C2AE, who has been on this job since 1992, I think. Well, we started in 1994, but I think the McNamee, Porter, and Seeley spent a couple of years in preparation, and some of us were on the commission then. And remember, and he hasn't gotten a whole lot older, but
We have.
but you certainly can answer that question.
A little sidelight, I was looking for a resolution that was passed with the project plan in '94 today, trying to find if I could find it in our files. And I came across the public hearing that we held, that's why '94 stuck in my head. And I got to admit, I sure was windy back in those days. I mean, how you tolerated that, what can I say? I've learned.
Time flies.
There
Can't believe
was
it's.
a number of comments from Commissioner Lawrence in there also that were kind of a reminder.
Yes.
Tonight, we're asking you to act on a number of different issues. One you've already done, which is, of course, the bond resolutions in order to get the money for the last phase of the project. The other part is the SRF components. There is a resolution that has to be passed by the commission tonight, making formal award to the contractor. And I think the manager's report did a nice job of outlining the dollar amounts involved. And in essence, bids were taken on, I gotta be careful here, I almost blew yours out last time. Bids were taken on July 1st. There were 4 bidders. The original construction budget was about $11 million. When the bids came in, the low bidder, who is Baco, came in at about 12.1. So there was a lot of discussion at that time whether to increase the project and try to incorporate the entire construction budget or to bring it back to the original amount of about 10.9. The decision was made to remove a couple, actually it's 3 small streets, Lion Street a little bit bigger, but then 2 segments, one on Cary and one over on Court, to bring that budget back down into the $10,995,000 region. And in doing that also, being very careful that we watch that we didn't nip into the CSO separation work very much. So we went for the areas that had the smallest amount of CSO impact, things like one catch basin that can be gone after by the city at a later time. So the document, in essence, our recommendation tonight to the commission is to pass the resolution that has been prepared on the state format to award the contract to Baco, 2 steps, First of all, the original award for the $12,191,000, and then a second step, which is a change order that ratchets that amount back to the 10-9. That's all part of your resolution. The only other thing that we want to be careful, make sure that we get past tonight, is authorization for the manager. Part 3 of the application, the last part, has to be in by Friday. So I brought the documents over. They carry the manager's signature, so he's going to need authorization to sign those. Linda has the complete packets downstairs. Clerk has to put in the resolutions, and then the backup data is all there. It just takes the manager's signatures, and it can be mailed out preferably on Thursday to make sure it's in Lansing on Friday. Has to be in Lansing on Friday. So does anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner
I
Lynn?
still have the floor.
Yes.
Is this our last CSO project?
That's what you asked me last time when I was
Yes.
there. This is the last planned phase of the 20-year CSO plan, okay? I mentioned last time that now the focus changes a little bit. We foresee coming down the road a piece, and after the Phase A debt starts dropping off. I mean, we're not talking that we start talking other projects here until Phase A, and then Portage, and then Phase B. They all kind of roll off in a hurry here in the next 5 years. The wastewater plant is in need of work, there's no doubt. And so focus needs to swing back to that plant and start talking about a project there. And we're also experiencing maybe a little higher flows than we'd like to see coming down from the west side of the city. So there may be some issues having to do with I&I that we might have to chase up in that direction, up towards the shallows and
What's I&I?
infiltration and inflow, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll know now when the last phase is done as to what the impacts will be. So.
I would
So
just like to remind everyone that the CSO project, which started in '94,
We did, yeah.
this was federally mandated. We had no choice. There were extremely heavy fines per day, which was unbelievable. We'd be bankrupt in a week, if not sooner. So we had to do this, and we took heat for it, but we're just about done. But don't worry, the federal government is going to have more plans for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, which probably will be unfunded.
And a reminder too, the commission, the state tried to push the schedule back even tighter.
Yes, and we fought that in court.
And the commission made a stand with the EQ and negotiated close to what the original length was. I think it was 18 rather than 20 years. So there's been a lot of work and a lot of effort by all parties on this project. And this is the last step the commission has to take pre-construction. So congratulations, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Anything else?
That took a long time to get
Yeah.
that.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yeah, so in a word, the answer to Bill's question was no.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way to spin that.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
No, we're not done, totally, but,
It never ends.
no.
Never ends.
But again, there was a lot of planning done to make sure that we didn't double up on debt. So the schedule is, as the other debt starts dropping off, you think, now, we're talking 30-year increments in some of this stuff too, so things wear out in 30 years' time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And just a couple comments, and Randy mentioned the cooperation, and certainly we could have not done what we were able to do as a city with the cooperation of many homeowners, and I'm not sure what the number is, but it exceeds probably 1,500 homeowners. Probably looking at 1,800 homeowners, and by the time we're done, it could reach, I'm not sure what our total population is, but we've probably affected 85% of the households, if not more, in the city of Sault Ste. Marie. We certainly had their cooperation because I think it started at $30 a foot, and now it's at, I think, 45 this next go-around, or $40 a foot. So over this almost little over 20-year period, we've raised it about $10 a running foot, but well within, hopefully, maintaining the budget, because we cannot be in deficit on the CSO work. So we certainly appreciate the cooperation, and I speak for the commission and previous commissions the cooperation that we've had from homeowners and certainly our engineers and the city itself. And we will be done with the different phases, but as things go on, you just can't let it go. So you have to maintain what we've built. And the one good thing, I think, is that we don't have to rip the streets up anymore for the most part. If we can keep the water off the streets, then all we do is blacktop. And if we have to do a replacement of a combined sewer, that can happen. But we don't have to do the how many miles of roads have we paved? I think it was some 18 miles of roads, roughly, that we've paved in the city, square foot, or however they count that stuff. I think it's maybe more than that. So
Could be more than that.
it's coming to, at least that part of it's coming to an end here in several years, I should say. So anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? Okay, we have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Boswis?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Motion carried, thanks. And we have one more motion to go, right? Was there two on that one? Or was that the...
That was the second one.
That was the final one?
Mm-hmm.
We did two?
We did two.
Okay. It's been a while, so. Okay, it's item E.
Item E, under Manager's Report, tentative contract award for construction, CSO Control Phase C3. I would like to thank Mr. Scott for beautifully summarizing my memorandum on that. But essentially, just to emphasize one point, the scope of work that was reduced includes the elimination of street construction work on Lion Street between Bingham and Kimball, on Court Street from Spruce to half a block north of Court and Spruce Street, and Cary Street from Kimball to Johnston. Just as a note, this was eliminated from the CSO Phase C3 project. However, this work can still be included and completed as a component of the city's 6-year capital improvement plan. That being emphasized, I would first recommend that the City Commission approve the included resolution to tentatively award a construction contract for water and wastewater system improvements. That tentatively awards the CSO Phase C3 project to Baco Construction Company contingent upon successful financial arrangements being made with the SRF and DWRF programs and the execution of both a contract agreement in an amount of $12,191,793 and the approval of change order number 1, reducing the project work scope and cost to $10,995,925, and would further recommend Commission authorize the city manager to act as the executor of the documents related to this project.
Okay, and the city attorney says that could be one motion. Commissioner Stefanski.
So moved that the city commission approve the city manager's recommendations.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Commissioner Stefanski.
Yeah, I just had a question. I was looking at who bid it on the project. Did we have a problem with M&M years ago, or was that another company?
Another company.
Another
Although
company.
we've
We settled.
through the course of the contracts, you always have a bit of a problem with, but nothing that hasn't been resolved, I don't believe, right? We're okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Boswis?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Under item F of the City Manager's Report, authorization of an agreement with the Sault Ste. Marie Country Club Incorporated. At the direction of the committee established to evaluate this issue, City Attorney Canello has approved a 2-year agreement running from January 1st of 2014 through December 31st of 2015 that would provide an annual payment for each of those 2 years in the amount of $25,000 by the city to the Sault Ste. Marie Country Club, with an additional agreement under Section 3.3 of the lease agreement that both entities will cooperate to sell the combined assets of both parties to a third party. As commissioners are aware, this agreement would replace the existing 10-year agreement that had previously been extended, and the properties would be listed for $1.77 million. That's on the real property, and the equipment would be listed for $170,000, and any sale of the combined assets to a third party would require the approval of both parties. At this time, the Sault Ste. Marie Country Club Board of Directors has verbally agreed to sign this agreement. Pending additional further research into the vehicle liability insurance the club would be required to maintain in accordance with the agreement. And do have two recommendations. The first would be that the commission approve the lease agreement in substantially its presented form, or alternatively, as an additional course of action, that the commission provide additional direction to the committee regarding this document. In regards to the fiscal effects, I can elaborate on that. In regards to the fiscal effects, would like to defer to our Finance Director, Treasurer, Kristen Collins, for a little bit of background on the fiscal effects of this agreement.
Hello, Commission, Mayor. This agreement would really simplify our process. It would make it so that the city doesn't have to review the financials annually and pay for the loss. It would pay a flat amount. It would also enable the club and the course to operate without having the bookkeeping task of separating the revenues and expenditures for both parts of the business. I think it's a good move for the city in the short run, and would make it more clear, I think, what the city's obligation is. Did anyone have any questions for me?
Commissioner Bauer, you have a question?
Yes, you say that it's a good move in the short run, and I suppose I agree with that, but what if nobody ever wants to buy it and this just goes on and on? You know what I mean?
In my opinion, the agreement should be reevaluated after several years. If there is no sale, no offer for sale, it might be a good idea to take a look at what kind of revenues the course has, whether it's able to operate on its own.
The city attorney also stated that it's only a 2-year agreement. So at the end of that, it expires, and there something else would have to be in its place, or?
And 2 years, I think, is a reasonable amount of time to let them operate and see how they can do as a whole business. The current arrangement separates the club and the course, and it's probably a difficult management to try to push one side more than the other. It isn't a very translucent operation when you look at the financials. I'm not sure if any of you took a look at the profit and loss statement, but it's confusing, even for me. I think every party that's been involved finds it a little bit cumbersome to work with. I spoke with the accountant for the club, and she also found it to be not a very clear description of what goes on there. Although she got all the information she needed to present the financials, but in her opinion, they just aren't giving a very clear picture of the business. So I find that as well.
Any other questions of Kristen? Thank you.
Thanks.
We have a gentleman in the audience.
That completes my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and Don Cole wished to address the item? Yes, please. If you identify yourself for the record, we would appreciate it.
Okay, my name's Don Cole. Been a resident of the Sioux for about 40 years, and I'm a business owner. And my question is, I heard this on the news this morning, that it was going up for sale and that you'd be paying $25,000 per year for 2 years. I'm just wondering what the $25,000 is for and where is it coming from?
That's what you're...
That's my question right now, yeah.
Right now, because you get a chance to make a statement, it's not a give and take type thing. You're making a statement,
okay,
so that's what you want to know? That'll do it. Oh.
That's it?
Yeah, okay, thanks, and we'll answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the fiscal year 2015 budget that was approved by the commission includes an appropriation in the amount of $25,000 for non-contracted services, for additional contracted services, but this would be coming from the general fund. And essentially what this is over the past recent 6 years, on average, the city has shared in the losses of the club on an average of about $12,000 per year. Last year, that was over $18,000 per year. I believe it was $18,150. And so essentially what the $25,000 payment would be to identify up front exactly how much will be owed and paid to the club. That would help improve efficiencies a little by eliminating some of the cumbersome accounting that's required per the agreement. And in conjunction with the payment of that $25,000, the club would cooperate with the city in the sale of the actual combined assets.
Okay. Also, just a question. As the city attorney, myself and Commissioner Lynn own stock. I mean, way back when it didn't cost us anything. If you could find a member that had more than one share of stock, they talk them into buying or giving it to you. That happened, and I'm sure that's how Commissioner Lynn.
I can show you what it's worth.
Yeah, not worth a whole lot, but in asking the city attorney if we can speak to this matter, because we're not members of the board and have nothing to do with operating the course. Is it okay if we have the discussion?
Your individual ownership of one share of stock in this particular entity, the way their stock program works, would not run you afoul of any requirements that you abstain. Hence, your public duty is to participate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner.
I'm just wondering, out of the 25,000, there could also be equipment purchases that they need?
That's correct, Commissioner Lynn. That $25,000 is an all-inclusive payment.
Okay, because I know that there's a turnover of equipment, it's heavily used, it's very expensive, etc. The other thing is that because they're going to work with the city to sell it within the next 2 years, I'm going to support this. But I would like to make a statement that if anybody thinks that the golf course, the whole facility, the building, I think we own 15 holes, is that correct? Citizens own 15 holes?
Jamie Davison, the club manager and pro at the golf course, is here, and I see he came in a little late, so he didn't have a chance to raise his hand to speak to this item, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind, and I think it's only fair that he can come up, if we have questions of him.
Because I'm not giving up the...
No.
You're not giving up.
Is it 15 holes?
It's about 15 and a half, yeah. Okay. And then the country club itself owns the clubhouse facilities, the practice areas, the maintenance facility,
building,
all the parking lots that surround all the buildings there. So that is
the point I want to make is that common sense. This facility is not going to sell for $1.7 million. It's a beautiful golf course. Matter of fact, all the golf courses in the Eastern Upper Peninsula are very nice. All of them. Tanglewood, all the rest of them are excellent. I think they appraised the Kinross golf course, buildings, equipment, golf carts, the whole thing was under $300,000. Now I realize they don't have the view that we do, but I hope this isn't what the country club is thinking. Well, they're going to get 1.7. It ain't going to happen. There's no way this is going to happen. And also, it's financed by Central Savings Bank, and whoever wants to buy the 15.5 course also has to deal with the bank besides the country club. And but I just think to put a price tag, and this has to be an old appraisal. Is that correct?
2003.
2003. Yep. It ain't going to happen.
Do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I just wanted to let everybody know that, I mean, yes, understandably, the city would be contributing $25,000 a year to the country club, but the vast majority of that money that is going to be contributed to the country club, it's going to stay there. It's going towards improving the asset that the city owns. It's going towards equipment purchases. It's going towards building improvements. It's going towards land improvements. It's not going to just pay whatever we want with it. It's going into the city's asset, and that's where it's gonna stay. That's the whole point of this subsidy that you guys are looking at possibly contributing to the country club itself.
And I know, Jamie, this year you definitely need some new equipment.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're in desperate need of equipment,
Yeah.
cart path repair. I mean, there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done that
Yeah.
just isn't getting done because we don't have that little bit extra money to put into it right now.
City Attorney, has a committee been set up? Any names been thrown around, the two entities here, to try and sell it? Has that been discussed?
Well, if this agreement is approved, once it is executed by both parties, then the steps will be taken to identify the realtor and place the listing. You know, if you think back on this operation, you know, Union Carbide, when they left the Sioux in 1963, gave the course and the club and everything to the city. The club was formed, and the city allowed the club to just manage the course and make sure it was open and advertised and accessible to all members of the public, which they did. And the city was never involved in any of the accounting gyrations associated with the ins and the outs of it. About 13 years ago, the city became interested in the finances of it. And as a result of that, it became apparent that the finances were intertwined and there would need to be some work done to split the finances out. So charts of accounts were created and appropriate allocations of percentages to course and club were made. And we entered into a 10-year agreement. And unfortunately, the Great Recession came along, and the terrorist attacks had already come along. And the long and the short of it was Canadian business fell off. The Canadians built some courses. You know, play decreased. The recession caused problems with play and revenue. And golf courses all over the state of Michigan started going out of business. And we had put that agreement in place. The time we put that agreement in place 13 years ago or 14 years ago, the course was operating in the black. And we had a provision in the agreement that said the profits would be divided between the operator and the city, and the city would reinvest its profits into the course. Unfortunately, the language also said, I had a provision that dealt with the payment of losses. And we promptly started getting losses in 2008. And the losses got really big in 2009, got up in the $30-some thousand range, and half of that's, you know, about 17 each. And then they went down for a while, and then they went back up again. And the last year, as the manager indicated, our share is about $18,000 some odd dollars, so a $36,000 operational loss. The course needs a lot of work. The inherent last 6 years of losses have caused, as realtors like to say, deferred maintenance to occur. And there's no sign that any of that is going to change. And so the committee that you appointed to negotiate this, Commissioner Shimmons and Stefanski, aided by staff, tried to negotiate an agreement to get us out of those losses because we didn't see where it was going to turn around. And the needs of the course were pressed by the club in those negotiations. And as you know, we reached an impasse, the committee and the club, and we brought that back to you about a month ago. And you sent us back to negotiate some more. And so this is what came out of those negotiations. To answer the gentleman that was curious about the finances, this additional subsidy is only going to be $7,000 more than what we'd had to pay under the old agreement if the old agreement was still in place, given the demands and needs for the deferred maintenance that has occurred at the course, it's probably peanuts in terms of making any appreciable changes out there. So there's always a tit for tat, and that's where the idea to sell the facilities came about, is get us both out from underneath this operation as it stands. The appraisal was back at a time when the commission was interested in selling the operation, and the commission and the Sioux tribe undertook to get an appraisal done. Didn't go anywhere. The tribe didn't make any offers. I think the city might have been hopeful at the time, maybe the club was hopeful at the time as well, but it didn't happen. And that's where that appraisal came from. And so that was the number we used in the agreement for the purposes of committing the parties to list the property with a realtor. Now the listing will be placed with a realtor who's experienced in resort facilities. Like you say, it seems like a large number.
Should it be reappraised?
The realtor will obviously be telling the parties what's been going on statewide with respect to courses, but we do know courses have closed and gone out of business in the state of Michigan since this last agreement 10 years ago or 13 years ago was negotiated. So it's come full circle from the Union Carbide days back to we were interested in the numbers to sharing the profits, which never happened, and ended up sharing losses. And now the city was pushing for take it, it's yours, run it, make sure you keep it open to the public, and good luck. But we didn't get that.
Commissioner Gary.
I think, did Commissioner Shimmons have her hand up first?
Okay.
Thank you. I just had wanted to comment that $25,000 was a combination of anticipated loss plus a small amount of money to go towards the deferred maintenance or equipment, which has been already discussed as desperately needed.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Commissioner Gary.
I'm not in favor of the arrangement or the agreement, and just wanted to go over some of the pros and cons as I see them, and given some of the information that we've gone through. I think some of the pros, obviously, we wouldn't have any liability going forward for the losses, as the original agreement had, which is good. No closely tracking the accounting between the two entities, and I think as our finance director said, it's not very translucent, and I'm not an expert in finance, but looking through some of that, I certainly had some questions on the separation between the club income and the course expenses, and why they were so classified, and how that came out, but this is not the forum probably to go through the financial. I think each party concurring to sell is a good thing. I think we probably had the ability to sell without this agreement going forward, and it does set out the split of the proceeds. Now the cons are, I don't think the $25,000 a year is incumbent on the city to pay. I don't agree with that amount. I think it's the same arrangement they came to us with at the budget meeting when they requested the $25,000. I don't see a lot of difference. I don't like, as we've already talked about, basing it on a 2003 appraised value, which I think we all know is higher than we could practically get. If you look at the other golf course in town and look at their tax base, or you look at the appraisal of Kinross, you're talking about at least 3 times more money. In the agreement, I didn't say or see, I see that there was a price set for $1.75 million plus $170,000. But what if somebody were to offer us $1 million? Who had right of first refusal, and who would negotiate that sales price? I didn't see any type of verbiage in there as to how we come up to a concluded value. I think the listing price is prohibitive based on that older appraisal. I think that realistically from the club's end, it would be a great deal because we'd be subsidizing, as the word has been used, $25,000 a year for the 2 years of the contract. And I don't foresee a sale happening within the 2 years. I'm not being pessimistic, but knowing that with commercial properties, they have a listing time of, we have residential properties that are 6 to 9 months listing time sometimes. I think a commercial property takes a lot longer, and I think Commissioner Lynn understands that with his banking experience. And those are, I think, most of my concerns, that really it puts the club in the driver's seat, and I think the city could still sell the property even if they didn't have the consent of the club. I know that's not as marketable, but I will be voting no on this deal as structured. I would support maybe a one-time payment to the club to assist them with some asset purchases. We list it for sale. We agree on the pro rata split, but the city would have more of a right in the negotiation, I think, as long as the club doesn't end up in a deficit situation on the sale. But I think we have a little bit more negotiating to do.
Any other comments? Commissioner Twardy?
Just a question, are we only going to be listing it with resort property people? What if a developer wanted to purchase the property?
City
Well, the listings for the purposes of getting the word out with respect to the availability of the property. Any prospective purchaser would be eligible to obviously make a proposal. And as you know, many golf courses do include real estate developments around them. And the city owns additional land next to the golf course, significant acreage as well. So a developer might well get interested in a housing project or something on that site with golf amenities associated with it. So I don't think there's anything that restricts where this could go if there was interest.
Okay, so then one follow-up question. If there was a developer interested, why would we put money into something that would not be used for the same purpose?
I guess I can answer that. Nobody's saying that it's not going to be used for the same purpose because the amenity's all inclusive. And as the city attorney said, there's other properties available. I think you have to take into account what the committee has been able to do. And this is a city asset that has not required a lot of city income, or at least a lot of city revenue over the last six years or 10 years. At 12,000 average, to have what we have as a course to play on, and I guess I speak because I play there quite often. That is just not, for that small course, to have the kind of play that it gets even from year to year, how many, I mean, you look at, I don't know what the rounds are, but it's in the 20,000s, maybe more than that.
It's gone down. It's gone down significantly everywhere. Rounds are down, yeah. No matter where the golf course is located. Rounds of golf have gone down in the last 5 years. I mean, that's no shock to anybody. Mm-hmm. But just the amount of money that the city puts into an 18-hole golf course. You look at, if you want to compare it to some other city or municipally owned golf courses around, take a look and see how much they spend on their golf courses. And then take another look at how much you spend on the rest of your recreation in your city. And you'll find that it's a steal for how much you pay.
Thanks, Jim. I let him speak because ultimately I don't have, but you asked the question about if it's not going to be used.
Right.
We have waterfront all over the community that sits there. We have the Carbide dock that sits there, been there for 30 years that we have had for sale and not had any offers. So let's be realistic. I think the committee did an exceptional job. Sure, the 25,000 is a lot of money, but ultimately this year was 18 with not a whole lot going. The leagues down there continue to help the course, not the club, because the money going into by these people giving thousands of dollars to the course have helped the cart pass, have helped other amenities on the course, but they'll continue to give. But because we're listing it for sale, and I agree with Commissioner Lynn, we're not going to get that kind of money. Ultimately, Newberry sold last year. A person from Newberry came back to Newberry, multi-millionaire, put up a brand new clubhouse that makes Boyne, if you've ever been to Boyne Highlands, Boyne, Bay Mills.
Any course.
It's state of the art. Are they having a hard time making it? You better believe it. But it happened. Now, if we can find someone of that entity, but ultimately, we only own 15 and a half holes as a city, the country club owns the rest of that, and if someone wants to do something, the city has the property, given the fact that discussions can occur.
Also,
Oh, wait,
Well,
let's go over here
I still
first.
have the floor.
Let's go over here first.
Only one more comment, and
Yeah.
then just one more quick question.
Yeah.
My comment is that I read the original newspaper articles back from the mid-1990s, and this was never meant to be the taxpayer's burden. So the fact that we are incurring losses on it every single year, that has become taxpayer's burden. And, you know, you say we don't put a lot of money into it, but I think most municipal golf courses make money in the end of the year. And so reinvesting into a property that makes money, that makes sense. But continuing to invest into a property that continues to make does not make money, does not make sense. So then just one more quick question. Well, how quickly will we be looking for it to go up for sale? Just a question.
If the agreement's approved, as soon as it's signed by both parties.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yeah, several things. Number one, I think that Commissioner Gary really hit the nail on the head with many of the pros and cons. He did have one question that I don't really think we got an answer to, and that is who does have the final say over that final purchase price? I mean, if it goes up for 1.7 and someone comes in at $1 million or 800,000 or $750,000, you know, is that up to us at that point in time completely that we accept or reject that offer? Or, you know, how do you foresee that going?
Well, both parties have assets that are involved in the transaction. When the course was expanded from 9 holes to 18, the city did not own any adjacent real estate at that time. We didn't acquire the adjacent real estate until sometime after that through a bequest in a decedent's estate. So the design architect of the course used every available inch of land he could use because it was a tight fit. And that included using land that was part of the country club's ownership. And everybody wanted to see that course expanded to 18 holes, and they went with that, even though it created the situation you're in now. If there were, it's a 2-year agreement. If a reasonable offer comes along, either party could refuse to go forward with the closing if it was less than what we're listing it for. Might be the city, might be the country club. We don't know who's going to have hurt feelings at that time, but at the end of the 2 years, those hurt feelings will be dealt with.
I guess the 2 other questions I had, just to be clear, if we did reject this request for $25,000, we would still be on the hook for 18, right? So the difference is only 7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So the question isn't really 25,000 for some, you know, for concerned citizens such as Don Cole. We're really voting on $7,000 and not $25,000
for this year.
For this year, right. The other thing that I wanted to point out is with 20,000 rounds of golf, you know, if they could have charged $2 per round more and not been seriously affected, you know, and not seen serious decreases in play, because $2, I think, is a negligible amount for something like this. For most people, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because the loss would not have occurred.
I can answer that, but I'll have just to answer that. You want me to answer that? You want to answer that?
You want me to answer the first question or the second one?
Well,
about the agreement or about the
about the
fees?
money, about the if you added another $2 to the.
Well,
would
we're,
you have
we're already, other than Bay Mills, we're already at least anywhere from $2 to $6 higher than anybody else in the area right now. And if you went another $2, that would put us to potentially anywhere from $8 to $10 more than everybody else in the area right now. And that would have a significant effect because, let's face it, I mean, people don't have that extra income to spend on recreation right now, even if it is only $2. And going back to your comment about the agreement, the the 18,000 has already been, that's already been taken care of. That was to cover 2013. If this agreement tonight wouldn't go forward, then the current agreement would continue at the 50%.
And we don't know what that loss is until the end of December.
We wouldn't know what that loss would be until the end of 2014.
But, because I'm not
Sure,
done.
okay.
As someone who deals in a premium industry, okay, where when I opened, I had a lot of people tell me, there's no way you can charge $3.50 for a pint of beer. But I mean, if it's a better product, or if there's any other reason that you give people for golfing there, you know what I mean? Possibly it's the proximity, possibly it's the fact that, you know, that they can get the tee times they want, as opposed to, you know, perhaps I'm just speculating, that maybe there would be more overcrowding at Tanglewood, maybe with the people that would drop off, and that would make the tee times at the country club more appealing. I mean, these are all things that until you do it, you don't really know. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's fair to say that if they had raised the rates $2, that necessarily everyone would have dropped off.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Shivens.
That is one of the discussions that we had. And one of the other discussions, what Commissioner Torty has said, that it was never intended for the club to be a burden on the taxpayer, and that's what the taxpayer was told up front. And so, you know, we really haven't been following that line of thought. But aside from that, I'm just wondering if perhaps it would be a little more palatable to the commission if instead of adopting the agreement as currently printed, if we ask Steve to incorporate some of these points into it, so that it was a little more to your liking. I mean, I think it's agreed by the commission that you want to sell the course. And am I reading that right? Okay. So perhaps tonight, what you could do is adopt the premise that the country club is, you know, that the golf course is going to be for sale. And that the issues or the points that were discussed tonight will be included into the agreement. And maybe a draft copy could even be sent to the commission prior to it coming back. But if we could just agree on the premise tonight that the commission is in agreement that the golf course does need to be sold, that really gives us good faith going forward. Because I'll tell you, sitting there, we had several meetings over a lengthy period of time. We actually started meeting before Mr. Neba left. And there was a lot of different points that were discussed. We kind of kept coming back to the same ones. And so it was not an easy negotiation. And we kind of came to this decision, you know, let's sell it, because we really couldn't agree on anything that was going to work for them and would work for us financially. Because the reality is, it's a different world, and we don't have the kind of money now to spend on these sorts of things that we had, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago. So if that sounds maybe more to your liking, if it's to Steve's liking too.
Let me, go ahead.
You know, it's difficult to really define, in my mind, what it is that might be causing hesitation in the adoption of this agreement.
Yeah.
And until this is turned down, I mean, we really ought to see what 4 votes, which way the 4 votes go. You know, I can certainly build language into the agreement that makes it rock hard that it's listed and is sold to the highest dollar amount that comes in, but I don't know if you would make that agreement with the country club. I don't know if they would do that. And I mean, the long and the short of it is you have two owners of real estate. And it was always my assumption that by having a 2-year agreement, you'd be testing the market and seeing what, if any, interest was out there. Because we started these negotiations on the premise that the city wasn't going to pay any more for losses. And we weren't going to put our nose in their accounting anymore. And it was, here it is, run it. And they said, oh no, that's not going to work because we're losing our shirt. And we talked to them about, why don't you raise your prices? You know, and they explained to us that they didn't think they had the pricing power to do that. And so they weren't in agreement just to raise the prices and live with an agreement where the city was hands-off in terms of participation. There's going to be a significant debt reduction in the course, but it's not going to occur for quite some time. Is it 2018, Kristen? 2019.
And then we just paid off this one.
Yeah, but the big bonds are 2019. You know, when those are paid off, you know there's going to be another necessary capital project. And how is that going to be handled at that time? We talked about all these things in the negotiations and tried to come up with something that would move us along, step us along, and not resolve the end run, because there just seemed to be too many unknowns to resolve the end run. And that's where we came from in putting this together.
Ultimately, you know, I'm not sure that I would vote to sell the golf course at this point. I think what we have is a city asset. It is a quality of life issue, much like Puller Stadium, much like marinas. We spend average $12,000 a year on the golf course. We spend $60,000 a year on the marinas. And I don't want to compete with fishermen and the amount of commercial that they, the economy that they bring to the community, or just local people fishing and having the right to have dockage privileges and stuff. And I think the right to have, even though we have a golf course on the west side of the city, this golf course is a bit different than that golf course, and I think different people golf those courses. But I think for $12,000 a year average is well within the limits that I feel when you look at the other entities that we support in quality of life issues, that to have an agreement for a 2-year period just to see what the market's like, because ultimately Newberry sold last year, and it's a better course now than it was, and they're getting some play, but I don't know how much play they're getting. Golf courses are going to struggle. It's certainly not going to go, in my mind, for $1 million or $1.7 million. But ultimately, if it's advertised, the person doing the advertisement is want to have, if they have their name on an advertisement that says it's for sale, they certainly want to be within in my mind, the right number, so that you have a possibility of it actually happening, or you're going to test the waters that it doesn't happen. But I think the agreement as it sits, in my mind, was hammered out by a group of people that took the time to do it, and I think this 2-year agreement is something that gives us some time to look at and see if there's actually some validity in the idea that it could sell. And I think it's a valuable asset in this community. Commissioner Lynn.
The golf course will sell what somebody will pay for it. It's as simple as that. And I would so move the City Commission approve the lease agreement pending any discussion regarding or preferred changes to the contents.
Support.
It's been moved, supported.
May I make one more comment?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, James.
If the golf course is sold, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go away, and being privatized could be the best thing that ever happened.
Could be.
You know, 5 years from now, you might be golfing on that course thinking, man, I'm so glad we sold it and got somebody who could sink some money into it, and it wasn't us.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You know, and just in regards to developing that land for non-golf related business, there's a lot of land available for a lot cheaper than that golf course could ever be made available for development. So as a developer, why you would, you know, you'd have to have some other reason that is unknown to any of us why you would buy that specific property for what, what would destined to be that price, as opposed to other large tracts of land within the city limits.
Mm-hmm. We have a motion to support? Oh, Commissioner Tuarte.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Jamie, that I'm in the same sort of business that Ray is in, where it's kind of a specialty type item. And it might be worth a shot for you guys to raise your prices a little bit, just to see if it works out. Because originally I thought nobody would ever pay $5 for a head of organic broccoli, but you'd be amazed at how many people will, especially if you give them great customer service and knowledge. And I've heard that you're a good golfer, so that might be your asset to raising prices. Yep.
Commissioner Gary?
And my comment was going to be similar to Commissioner Bowers, because I think as a community, as a city, as a government, we don't run business as well as private industry can and will. And we have testament to that here on the Diaz. So I think we have another privately owned golf course in town. We have one in Kinross, Hessel, Cedarville, all around. And so I don't personally feel that the comparison of the golf course as a city service is the same as what we have in the marinas and some of the other recreation programs that are not available through private enterprise, through private business. So I don't personally feel that it's a same or like comparison. And as I said, I don't specifically support it. And the other question I had, no offense intended to anybody, but with the agreement that we have, what incentive is there for the club to agree to a lesser contracted amount if they're going to get the $25,000 a year per year, and then they are still able to operate the club? I just think that there should be a little bit more cooperation, maybe a little bit more spelled out in the agreement as far as the negotiation on the contracted sales price. We haven't even talked to a broker as far as I know yet, so we don't even know where we're going. I did do some research on the internet, and there were some courses that just sold in Texas for less than what we're talking about this, and that's a 12-month operation. So we know we're not in the ballpark for the price, but where are we? And maybe we could spell out some parameters more clearly in our agreement.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have a motion to support. Everybody understand the motion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosbus?
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
No.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Shimmons?
Yes.
Commissioner Stefanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarte?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. You have a couple of status reports?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the first status report that's on the agenda regarding auxiliary, auxiliary police budget variance for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014, as is detailed in the memorandum, police auxiliary did have an additional security presence at the Carbide Dock in the spring. That presence incurred an extra expense in the amount of $13,600. However, simultaneously also brought in additional revenues in the amount of approximately $18,200. However, the expense line item is technically over budget. The overall public safety category, however, is well within budget. This information is basically being presented for your information as budget amendments after the close of fiscal year can't be adopted per the Michigan Department of Treasury.
And you have one other thing on it.
And in addition to that, there is one status report that I have that is not on the agenda, and that pertains to sidewalk safety downtown. And I'll just read off a brief email that was received by the mayor from a local resident. On June 16th, I was at a local business. An employee who works at the salon walked outside and was knocked to the ground by a man riding a bicycle on the sidewalk. I am not sure about the long-term extent of her injuries, as I haven't seen her since the fall, but I do know she was hurt. Had she not been a very fit young woman, the injuries may have been worse. Shortly thereafter, a young boy rode by on his bike with a small child perched on the handlebars. If he had hit someone walking out of a store, who knows what injuries might have been caused for that person, and or the child, and or himself. If the accident in front of the salon was not an isolated incident, then I am assuming that a number of people feel very comfortable tooling up and down the sidewalks with little regard to the safety of themselves or pedestrians. And I'm presenting this just to let the commission know that there was follow-up to this. In early July, myself, Chief Riley, DDA Director Nepper, Planning and Zoning Administrator Freeman, we met downtown, took a look at it, and decided that for now, the DDA would be posting some additional signage in regards to bicycle speeds and bicycle safety on the downtown sidewalks, and that additional information will be circulated on the website as well as the DDA newsletter. But just a note of caution for pedestrians on sidewalks.
Great, thank you. And that's, we all know we encourage bicycling, but in the pedestrian areas, they really have to be careful. We're lucky that the lady that was struck wasn't hurt seriously, because you know, an 85-year-old person, Avery Squares down there, we have a lot of senior walking in that area that are blind corners type of thing, in children. And if anything, if just parents would just remind children riding bikes that the older folks aren't quite as quick, and you really have to be aware of that kind of thing. Thank you for that report too, and I'm sure that won't end there. And I'd like to thank the DDA for at least putting up signs and making people aware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We have a couple comments, I think. Commissioner Stefanski.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. One thing, we do have a new project on Ashman there that's coming up in another year. I hope maybe we can include bicycle lanes or a lane on Ashman there. And I know I've seen this in other downtowns where there was a bicycle lane. I think that would help slow down vehicle traffic and also put a place for the bicyclists to ride. I don't agree with them riding on the sidewalks. I just see them whipping through there. And I think something does need to be done in the long term besides just some signs.
Commissioner Shimmons.
I didn't know that you could ride a bicycle on a sidewalk. I thought that was against our ordinances. No.
Is it the city manager?
We did evaluate that, and there was nothing in the ordinance that specifically prohibits that. And to your point, Commissioner Stefanski, next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, there is a public meeting scheduled for this to occur here in the City Commission chambers tentatively, and that will be to solicit input from those businesses along Ashman Street in regards to improvements they may want to see. So that may be one point of discussion there.
At 6 p.m.
And Director Knepper, was it confirmed that this room could be used for that, or? Yep.
Tuesday.
Okay, so that's next Tuesday at 6 o'clock here in the City Commission chambers.
Commissioner Gary and then Commissioner Tuardi.
Just, Commissioner Stefanski reminded me that we had a few years ago talked about putting bike lanes in when we did our future striping, and looking at slowing down some of the traffic. So I wonder if that's an initiative that we could rekindle with the engineering. And we had talked about Easter Day Avenue was one by the college, the university, excuse me. And we had talked about all future projects. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but we were going to pass a resolution or
I remember that. I think we did pass a resolution.
But there was one more step that we had to do, I think, in going to some of those classes. I'll dig up some of my notes.
Do you have a comment with Commissioner Gary's? Okay. Yes.
That was called Complete Streets.
Complete Streets, correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Tuardi?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think it's really important to do this, but I also think it's important to, my son is supposed to be wearing his helmet, and if anybody doesn't see him wearing his helmet, call my store, because he will be severely injured. No. But then I'm really concerned about a lot of other teenage kids around town. Maybe we can instill some sort of ordinance where under a certain age they're required to wear a helmet if you're going to be putting bike lanes in, because a lot of those kids are going to be tooling around on the streets and people don't watch out. Just a thought.
And Commissioner Tuardi, that's the type of ordinance that the administration would happily evaluate.
Okay.
Commissioner Shimmons?
I can attest personally to what
That's
will
right.
happen without a bike helmet if you fall.
Yeah, yes.
It's very serious,
Yep.
really. Concussion and black eyes and.
It's healed nicely.
You're looking much better now. Anyone else? Okay. That concludes the city manager's report.
It does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 7, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone in the audience like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to item number 8, the matters presented by the City Commission. Commissioner Gary.
Had a complaint from a constituent that was regarding the use of compression release engine brakes, commonly known as Jake braking, which causes the vehicle to make a loud chattering or machine gun exhaust noise with semi-trucks. Sometimes you can hear them coming, and they have a large popping. And he lives by the approach on the International Bridge. So I had sent an email to Phil Becker, the executive director of the IBA, asking him about that because they had signs going into Canada that prohibited the Jake brakes, as they called them, and he had responded that they did have signs up that made reference to prohibiting Jake brakes going into Canada, but Jake brake was a trademark on a brand name from the Jacobs company or something, and I don't know if they sued, but they complained, so they had to remove those, and they are now drafting a new sign that does not refer to Jake brakes, but will refer to compression braking. I had asked city manager about the issue, and he talked to Chief Riley, and it seems that right now this is a hot topic in communities that have highways or roads running through them too, because there are a lot of noise complaints. Unfortunately, it appears that there is no legislation that would specifically prohibit truckers from doing that in residential areas or in areas that have different sound barriers. So, and seeing as how this area that's impacted is, when we ride on the parade, we have the quiet zone area now, and really that's a noisy braking system, even in that quiet zone area where we have elderly people, and I know my house is right on the end of that. And although Chief Riley indicated that we have no legal basis to do so, I would like to make a recommendation that the commission direct the administration to formulate a request to the IBA, and Phil was interested in any request that we would put forward, that we not refer them to prohibited language, but maybe on his new signage would state something like, please avoid using engine brakes, or avoid the use of engine brakes, or at least have the administration to discuss with Phil some type of verbiage that could be used legally on the signs, just as a courtesy. And I don't know if that's something we could handle in this part, or if we'd put it on a agenda item for next meeting.
It could be just a recommendation, right? It wouldn't need to be a motion. We need a motion. Does Phil?
Well, would we need to make a resolution, or
okay,
just a recommendation and vote? Can we?
Well,
it'd have to be unanimous to add it onto the agenda.
I would assume the city manager will take your comments under advisement, and it'll
take care of it
here on a subsequent meeting, without the necessity of moving it onto the agenda and doing all the other things.
But do we need a subsequent meeting?
I think you'll have subsequent meetings.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Gary. I'll do that
Thank you.
and present it as a status report, perhaps. Sure.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yeah, 3 things real quick. Number 1 is that the Petoskey Steel Drum Band will be at Music in the Park this week. That's always a major community event. We've seen over 1,000 people in the park in the past. Of course, that's always contingent on the weather, I guess. But anyway, I know that a lot of people would be upset if they missed it. So that's coming up this Wednesday. Also, and it's that time of year, I guess, but I'm seeing a lot of illegal signs out. I'm seeing illegal politicals, illegally placed garage sale signs, and even commercial signs that I know are in the right-of-way and are not supposed to be in the right-of-way. So, if we could look for a little bit of enforcement on that, I would appreciate that. And finally, last meeting we dealt with, actually our last official meeting, because we had our interim meeting, but we dealt with the whole MCM Marine issue, and we talk, it seems like every other time we're out here, we talk about blight and what we can do to make the community look better. And I'm sure that everyone here at this table is aware that the Bauer family is one of the close neighbors of the city building, right? Well, Gus Macker, of course, occurred over the weekend, and there was cleanup of the mess, and there was a dumpster there from Smith Sanitation, and the dumpster got overloaded, and then people just started piling up their garbage along, in bags all around, and the birds came down and tore those bags apart, and there was garbage strewn all over the place. And as far as I know, Smith Sanitation has no real impetus to have to go around and pick up the garbage that's strewn all over the place. At least from what I've seen, if you've got your bags out and the birds come down, well then that's your problem, right? But I will say that the Smith Sanitation worker, first of all, emptied the dumpster, then went around, picked up all that garbage, put it in the dumpster, and emptied the dumpster again. So I would like to say, as your neighbor, kudos to Smith Sanitation worker. I have no idea who it was, but he did a good job with that, because I don't know if he was actually, obligated to go that far. You know what I mean? But they did a good job, because the grounds would have been a mess had he not done that. So,
Thank you. That is okay. Anyone else? I think this weekend, Friday, is at Rendezvous in the Sioux. Begins at least 100 people. I think Angie from our staff maybe used the tent this year. Remember last year it was really raining on I think the Friday night. It really one of our torrential rains that we hopefully don't see again for another 100 years. But I know I did some things in the morning with the encampment, and I wonder why her tent was so white. I mean, it's just crisp, clean, and they put it up, and then they just come to the encampment and that stuff, and then go home. They don't stay overnight. I tried to encourage her to stay overnight. So if anyone wants to use the tent, maybe you can talk to Angie while and she's not here to defend herself, so. But no, she spends an awful lot of time with the group preparing for this onslaught in the Sioux, and we all know what this means each weekend when we have different functions in the Sioux, and it takes a lot of cooperative volunteer work from, much like the Gus Macker Rendezvous in the Sioux, and the parades and everything. It helps make our community what it is, so we certainly appreciate all those efforts from those individuals that continue year in, year out. Normally the same individuals continue to be those people that continue to give of themselves, and we certainly appreciate that. But that's a big event, the encampment here in the Sioux this weekend, and we encourage all Eastern UP residents. I know they're listening, the ones that can listen on the TV. Spread the word, because it's just a great time. It's supposed to be in the mid-70s this weekend, so it should be great weather again for other events. Commissioner Gary, do you have something? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Stefanski.
I just had a quick comment. You were mentioning people hearing about our meetings. If I understand correctly, our meetings are going to be now streamed or rebroadcast on YouTube?
City Manager.
That's correct, Commissioner Stefanski. They will be stored and broadcast on YouTube, and you'll be able to access them. So if you have a citizen that goes out of town, they'll be able to play it after it's recorded and posted.
Or if you have trouble sleeping.
Commissioner Twardy.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I really didn't have any caffeine tonight, but I'm pretty, chatty. Anyway, to the person who attempted to destroy my plants on Friday night out front of our store, I doubt you're even watching, but you did not succeed, and I will continue to put plants up. And as I told you before, when you mess with the Harmony Health Food Store, you get bad juju back in place. So you never mess with holistic people. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lynn.
Okay. I'll leave those plants alone. I understand.
So what happens when you get drunk, Bill?
I understand, City Manager, you should not quit your day job to be a basketball official. Is that correct?
I plan to be a city manager for a long time, and will not be an official of any type.
I would like to say a comment, what Ray brought up about Smith Sanitation. My parking lot was heavily used this weekend, and we're not open on the weekends. And I'll tell you, people really respected my property. There was some garbage. I didn't pick it up, but somebody did. And when I got there Sunday night, everything was clean. And with Farmers Market, they gave us 2 signs, allowed parts parking alone only. That's working. And thank you. Yeah, you made my son happy. Okay. But Farmers Market, the people are being respectful. I appreciate that. With that, move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.